Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be addressing the people in the cryptocurrency market that believe Bitcoin is dead and that Bitcoin is going to go to zero and never recover. I want to talk to the people here that believe that Bitcoin is never going to go back to $20,000, or that Bitcoin is never going to go beyond $20,000, or that Bitcoin is in fact going to go to zero, or that Bitcoin may break $3,000 and never get back up above $3,000, or that will never actually reach even above $10,000 again. I'm going to be talking to these very bearish people, and if you're not one of these very bearish people, I think you're going to find value in this video anyway, so that you have a good understanding of the opinions of the bullish people in the cryptocurrency market and a good understanding of why so many people still are so incredibly bullish on Bitcoin even after the events of 2018. We're going to be talking about market history in today's video. We're going to be talking about simple economics. We're going to be talking about the fundamentals of Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency space, and we're going to be talking about the overwhelmingly bullish future of Bitcoin. So if you enjoyed today's video, guys, definitely consider dropping a like, hitting that subscribe button, and smashing the notification bell, guys. If you're new here, we do crypto videos every single day. If you're interested in learning about cryptocurrency technical analysis, I really do think that I provide something good here. So if you guys want to learn how to do TA, definitely hit that subscribe button. Anyway, without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to be doing just a little bit of short-term TA here to start off with, since there's not a whole lot to talk about, and then we're going to be jumping right on into the video. What we've seen over the last couple of days is Bitcoin has made two little crashes right here, 1, 2, and right now a lot of people are arguing that what we're seeing right here, this sideways trading above $3,575, is a little bit of a bear flag, and that we're probably going to be dropping lower from there. I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that we very well may be about to drop below here and move down towards $3,300, $3,400, probably not all the way down to $3,100, but I think there's a decent chance that there's a more bearish move coming. If we look on CoinMarketCap, what we're going to see is Bitcoin is trading around $3,675 across all exchanges with around $4.5 billion of volume. Nothing really to write home about in today's video as far as short-term technical analysis, which is why I wanted to zoom out and do some longer-term technical analysis. So let's go ahead and jump into the first point I wanted to make, and that actually has to do with 2017, not even 2018, and certainly not 2019, as it relates to the cryptocurrency market. Let's look back over here in 2017 and really try and dissect why 2017 was such a bullish year. We're going to go back on the Bitfinex chart because it has more history. Why was 2017 such a bullish year? Because as you can see on the chart, if we bring our ruler out here, Bitcoin rallied almost 2,000% in the span of 1 year. And then the year following, if we count the year starting at December 17th, just for simplicity, then Bitcoin actually lost about 80% of that valuation. That was a very big move. 2017 and again in 2018, those were very, very big moves. And why did that happen? Well, it goes back to something that I tell a lot of my subscribers, and I tell a lot of the people on the channel, and that is that bull markets end in a roar and bear markets end in a whimper. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it's very obvious. Right up here was the climax of this bull market, and that was definitely a roar. Bitcoin was running hundreds of percent in the span of just a couple of weeks. Right here, in the span of about a month, Bitcoin ran 250%. But actually the exact inverse happens during bear markets. What we see is volatility drops off as the bear market continues. Volatility drops off, typically volume drops off. As we can see here, volumes pick back up a little bit, but that's because this volume is not actually linear. This is based on Bitcoin price, if I'm not mistaken. So you have to keep in mind the volume has been, in general, dropping off for Bitcoin over the course of this bear market, and a lot of times that does happen in bear markets. We see the exact same thing happen if we come back here to the 2014-15 bear market. The Bitcoin price action was dropping. The Bitcoin volatility was dropping. Bitcoin investor sentiment was dropping. It was getting more and more bearish, and also volume was dropping. We bring up our chart here, it was kind of dropping, but because we lost so much valuation, then this chart is skewed. But volume on a dollar basis was actually staying stagnant or actually dropping. And one thing that we saw was Bitcoin had to slowly but surely convert this downward momentum into an upward momentum and do what you might call a very, very, very long-term bounce. You know, Bitcoin's dropping. He's like a skater going down a ramp, and then he hits the bottom, and then he starts going back up. And when he starts going back up, because Bitcoin's such an awesome thing, Bitcoin started going back up in a really, really major way. But why does all this tie into what we're doing right now? Well, this also ties into another principle of markets that I talk about here, and I talk about in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy, linked in the description. I talk about the fact that markets are cyclical. Markets tend to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that's one of the reasons why this market, the 2018-2019 bear market, looks so very similar to the one over here in 2014 and 15. This bear market in 2014, I have other videos on the channel, you can go back and watch those, but 2014 looks almost identical to 2018 on a technical level when we look at how the market interacted with moving averages, for example, how it interacted with our MACD. For example, down here, I'm not going to get into all that in today's video because we're talking about theory here, but this market looked almost exactly the same as the 2018 one, and I think 2015 is going to end up looking very similar to the way 2019 looks because, like we said, markets are cyclical, and so far, 2018 has been following 2014 almost exactly, and there's no reason to believe that 2019 won't do the same. But there is something very interesting to keep in mind with 2017, and this is really one of the biggest arguments that I have for the bullishness of Bitcoin. I have a lot of them, and I'm going to be laying out many of them in this video, but one of the biggest reasons why I'm still so bullish on Bitcoin is because of exactly what I just talked about. I talked about that cyclical action on Bitcoin, where Bitcoin tends to go and do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Bitcoin does it. Many of the altcoins do it. The altcoins don't do it to such an extent because many of the altcoins are younger, but the longer the market's been around, a lot of times you'll see patterns start to emerge. And not only did we see this bear market kind of crash and crash and crash and then bottom out and then turn down here in 2014 and 15, we also saw a massive bull market in 2017. Now, if we were to extrapolate that out, then that means 2021 or 2022 would look something like 2017. But you have to keep in mind that people are going to remember 2017. This is not something people are going to forget. A lot of people focus on the fact that people are going to remember getting burned here in 2018, and they might not come back into the market. But let's also not forget that people are not going to forget how much money they made in 2017. 2017 Bitcoin made a lot of people very, very rich. And it also made a lot of people very jealous because they didn't manage to get in on the action early enough. And when you have that happen, what you see happen is you see a snowball effect of people that are getting into the market because of what the market had done in the past, because they realized the simple truth that markets are cyclical. So when Bitcoin actually does start rallying again, when Bitcoin trades sideways here for the next 6 months, breaks up above $6,000 probably sometime close to the end of the year, and in 2020 or 2021 starts rallying in a really strong way, people that were in the market in 2016 and 17 are going to remember that. They're going to say, oh, I see what's happening here. I'm about to get rich if I buy Bitcoin. And the market's going to take off like a rocket ship, and we're going to go much, much higher than $20,000 because people know that Bitcoin has done it in the past. But that brings us to an interesting question. Was Bitcoin worth $20,000 over here? And by that token, is Bitcoin worth $20,000 in the future? Well, I'll be very straight up with you. Bitcoin was worth nowhere near $20,000 over here. But the fact is, Bitcoin still ran to $20,000 because the price action of the market, the dollar value of Bitcoin, is not only dependent on the underlying intrinsic value, something I talk about a lot. It is also dependent on the market structure, and it's also dependent on something that's far more important than both of those, and that is investor and trader sentiment. And like I said, when a bull market starts, the sentiment turns. As you can see, Bitcoin's been crashing and crashing and crashing, and it's like if you ask a girl out 20 times and every single one of them says no, then of course you're going to be sad. You're going to be very bearish on the prospect of getting a girlfriend because you've been in a bear market of getting a girlfriend. But if you start moving to the upside and you start getting, and you ask 5 girls out and 3 of them say, yeah, here's my number. Then you start moving up and up and up and up and up, and then your confidence starts to rise. And then as your confidence starts to rise, then you're able to go and ask more girls out, and then more of them give you your number, and you do it better and better and better, and you get that snowball effect. And that's really what bull and bear markets are, is it's a conversion from that bearish confidence to bullish confidence. And that is going to happen. And when it does happen, people are going to get really, really confident in the market in what's equivalent to the second half of 2017 because they've seen what happens in the past. And that leads us into another thing that I want to talk about. I mentioned intrinsic underlying value earlier, and if you guys have watched the channel for a while, you're probably familiar with that term. That's a term of mine, but I do want to go over it again. And I bring that term from a lot of different fundamentals that I look at. I look at institutional investors. I look at regulatory clarity. I look at the volume of the market. I look at a lot of things, a lot of fundamental analysis, actually. Perhaps I'll do some more videos on fundamental analysis in the future. I look at a lot of different fundamentals to get an idea of what the underlying intrinsic value of Bitcoin is. And that's really that's a very nebulous concept, but it is still a useful one. It's kind of a concept of saying, okay, well, what is Bitcoin really worth? Maybe we say that this is the graph of the underlying intrinsic value of Bitcoin. Is something like that, and that would have to do with adoption, regulatory clarity, regulatory uncertainty. We have We have institutional investment, interest rather, adoption. Excuse me, I already said adoption. We might have development in there. How well developed is the blockchain? How many cryptocurrency transactions can Bitcoin handle? The kind of underlying intrinsic value. And what you see, if you kind of plot this chart where I feel it is, and this is something that you're not going to be able to get from a technical indicator. This is something that you're going to be able to feel after you've been working in a market for so long. I've done technical analysis on this market literally every single day for this YouTube channel and for my own trades for the last year and a half and longer. So I do have a pretty good feeling of what the market is doing, especially on the longer term timescales, because of course I've had more time to think about it and reflect on it. And what I feel is that the underlying intrinsic value of Bitcoin looks something like this. Bitcoin was obviously way, way over its underlying intrinsic value back over here in December of 2017. Bitcoin was not worth $20,000. It simply wasn't. And we saw that play out when we came down here and started this bear market. But I think a good graph for what the kind of underlying intrinsic value would be like would be something like this with the median. Of course, it might be up here, it might be down here. But in general, what I think has happened is that Bitcoin back over here was above it, and Bitcoin right over here is below it. So what does that mean? Well, that means that, as we can see here, if underlying intrinsic value is rising like this, then what we see is that our intrinsic value is going up, and we see our price action in 2018 has been going down. And that gives us this gap right here that we have to fill. We have this gap where underlying intrinsic value is now above us in the same way that it was below us when we ran to $20,000, and the market will be drawn like a magnet back towards it, which is why Bitcoin crashed so hard during the 2018 bear market, and why I think Bitcoin is going to rally so hard moving on into the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020. I think it's going to take a long time for Bitcoin to really turn around and for this accumulation phase to bottom out and for Bitcoin to start getting away from $3,000. It might take as long as 6 months, but guys, if you're patient, you are going to be rewarded, because that is what markets are for. I believe it was Warren Buffett who said that markets are just a tool to transfer money from the impatient to the patient, and that could not be further from the truth. So if you guys are patient enough for Bitcoin to rally again, I think you're going to be very, very glad that you did. And I really think this underlying intrinsic value idea is a very good way to look at the market, because like I said, the market tends to be drawn like a moth to a flame or a piece of iron to a magnet towards it. And I think that that's a good way to illustrate the forces behind a bull market and a bear market. We could draw the same thing over here, where perhaps underlying intrinsic value for Bitcoin did something like this. It crashed off a little bit, and this would have to do with the Mt. Gox hack, where so many Bitcoin were lost, and a lot of people went bankrupt after that. So we might have seen underlying intrinsic value crash a little bit right around here, back over here when Mt. Gox happened. But in general, the fundamentals for Bitcoin have been improving. The block times have been improving. We've seen retail interest and institutional interest increase in a big way. We've seen a lot of institutions stepping into the market in the last year, gearing up for the next bull market, which is almost inevitable in my opinion. It would take something cataclysmic to stop a new Bitcoin bull market from forming in the next 4 years. I'm not going to say that's going to happen this year. I don't think that the Bitcoin bull market is going to start this year. At this point, it seems to me like the turning point will be in 2019, but the actual confirmation of a bull market using the technicals that I use to determine when a bull market starts will probably be happening in the beginning of 2020. But that's okay, guys. I'm here for the long run, and if you guys are, I think you're going to be glad that you were in the end when you're able to cash out on those Bitcoin returns. Anyway, guys, this video was actually a bit shorter than I thought it would be, considering everything that I wanted to touch on here, but I do believe that the Bitcoin bear market is going to be ending in the next couple of years, and I do believe that Bitcoin is going to be rallying far above $20,000 in the future, and I really don't see any reason to be bearish on Bitcoin in the long term. And if you guys think that Bitcoin is dead and that Bitcoin is going to zero, jump down in the comments section down below and tell me why, and we'll definitely have a discussion about it down there. I would love to hear your opinions. As always, guys, I do read every single comment if you leave it down there. If I hearted your comment, that means I did read it. Sometimes I don't get around to responding to every single comment because there's so many of you guys. I'm so flattered and thankful for all the support you guys show me. If you guys do want to learn how to do technical analysis and start to get this really amazing gut feeling for how to read markets that so many people that have been trading in the market for a long time have, then I highly recommend checking out the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. We have a dedicated video in the channel, in the course on that talks about how to build your gut feeling so you can have this kind of instinct about what the market is going to do before the market even does it. That's a really powerful video. If you want to see what that video has to offer, then I highly recommend signing up for CT2A with the link in the description down below. We also have a video on how to construct profitable trades and also how to protect yourself from losses. A lot of great content in that course, so if you want to learn how to do TA, I do highly recommend it, linked in the description. Anyway, guys, I think I've covered all my bases in today's video. If you enjoyed today's video, definitely consider dropping a like and hitting that subscribe button. But as always, guys, I do want to thank each and every single one of you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.